In this video, you're going to see me personifying one of my favourite phrases, living to fight another day. Here I'm going to fight every impulse I have to race, let people fight, make their own mistakes and try and outsmart them and bring home another decent result in order to take the next step on our road to A+. Hey guys, Irius here and welcome along to another video. If this is your first time here and you like watching all sorts of sim racing related stuff, subscribe now and click the bell icon so you get notified of every video I upload and you don't miss a thing. So we're starting in 14th for this one, we're going to jump straight into it. My qualifying wasn't the best here with a 146.5, but as I mentioned in the intro, this race isn't about out and out pace. Smarts and racecraft is going to be what defines my result today. Because of my grid position, I start the race in the most awkward place ever, right on this chicane here, but it isn't too bad as we managed to just about stay in the slipstream of 12th and 13th, who as you can see up ahead are already battling. Starting the race then, we're going to make our way down this massively long straight here at Circuit de Catalunya. Now I'm going to try and keep it calm and collected not only on this first lap like I usually do, but throughout this entire race for this one. Unlike the Ukrainian there up in front, yeah, I had to Google that flag before you guys slaughtered me in the comments. And coming into turn number 4, I actually end up alongside, well, on the outside of the Turk. I don't really want that, to be honest, at this point. I have the fuel gauge on because I want and need to save fuel. Now if I go too fast here I will either need to pit or really slow down towards the end of the race, neither of which I want. We want just a nice steady pace throughout this one and to not make any mistakes. The yellows are out here as the Spaniard there is off in the gravel, so up one place and then I get another straight away as the Turk goes wide. I think he must have been distracted by that Spaniard in the gravel, so up 2 places, up to 12th now. And whilst I've got a moment to speak and there's a break in the action, I'm gonna go through this one. There is a lot of theory in this one that I want to go through today, so we're going to jump straight into it. So, my strategy. Now I am no F1 strategist, but I like to think I know a thing or two about decent racecraft. We have 11 laps here at Catalunya, the home of the Spanish Grand Prix since it was built in 1991, and in my opinion one of the more fun ones to race around in the right class here on GT Sport. We're in the Group 3 cars obviously, as you can see, but the fuel has been set so that the meta strategy here is a no stopper. You will see that I'm one of not many cars that aren't the 911. It appears to be the car of choice, certainly in this lobby anyway. But as I'm not very comfortable in the 911, I went with the Merc as quite frankly I like it and the way it handles. But it also has a lot of low end grunt, which is a factor because this helps with this kind of race where fuel saving is key, because you can shift early to save fuel and not lose too much time in the process. So that is the car chosen. I could have chosen the 911 or even the R8 actually, come to think of it, but I'm just, as I say, not comfortable in either of those cars. So my thought is I could be as quick as I want, but if I bin it like we've seen some others do already around here, it'll all be for absolutely nothing. So the first smart choice I've made here is to go in a car I'm comfortable with and not the one that is necessarily the quickest. Now in a race like this, where I need to save fuel, I use a mixture of 3 techniques. The first one here is just early shifting, which is the one I use probably most often. As soon as I see I'm catching the guy in front, which I do by watching a delta on the left hand side of the screen, I will flick up to the highest possible gear possible. So we benefit from the car in front punching a hole through the air while we're sitting in the highest gear possible, which means we have the lowest possible revs. And I actually learnt that from one of the most polarising, it would seem, drivers in GT Sport, Indy Food. I met him in real life and he's actually a really nice guy, contrary to popular belief. But anyway, the second technique that I use is lifting and coasting before big braking zones. Combined with early shifting, this is another easy one to do and one that I use a lot. And to do this, you simply lift about 1 to 2 seconds before the big braking zone that you're approaching, and then brake and take the corner as you usually would. You don't really lose any time at all, but you save a bunch of fuel, so that's an easy one if you remember to do it. Now the third one is messing about with the fuel mix. Now I try this technique sometimes, but it means taking my eyes off the radar and not actually having the radar at all. So I don't really use it as much, because the radar, as we all know, is a crucial tool in GT Sport, especially if you use the view that I do, the hood view, and don't have the rear view mirror as a result. I use it to avoid the dive bombers and those types of people who use the quote, "If you no longer go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver." Which, if people actually did their research, that quote was the excuse that Ayrton Senna used for punting Prost off at the 1991 Japanese Grand Prix, which actually gave him his second World Championship. And after Prost crashed with him at the same race last year to win his championship, he used that as the excuse. But anyway, I digress. So the lack of radar is the reason I don't tend to play with the fuel mix, but if you can coordinate yourself to flick it, then adjust it, then put it back and get the radar back on in time for the corner to avoid those dive bombers and the people who use that quote, fair play, do it, because that will help save you further amounts of fuel too. So whilst everyone goes off racing and burning up all their fuel, I'm going to try and be as smart as I can, stick to the plan using those techniques that I've just explained to you, and see how far up the field I can get as a result. I'm car number 9 in this one. It shows that I qualified a little bit below where I was expected to, so the aim for this one here is to use the techniques that I just mentioned, as I said, and try and finish 9th or above in this one. Fast forwarding slightly here to the end of lap 4, the yellow flags are out again. Another Porsche goes off, and I did say these cars aren't easy to handle, which is why I'm in the car that I'm in, and that just proves going in the car you're comfortable with can be the smart move over the perceived meta car, so make sure you consider this when you're choosing your vehicle. We are up to 11th now as we start lap number 5, and as some of you may have seen, I actually changed up to 6th very early using the technique I mentioned earlier. We've now got just over 6 laps of fuel left, but there are 7 left in this race, so it's important to keep plugging away and resist any urge I have to fight and burn my fuel. We've now caught up to 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th as we come through turn number 3 here down into turn number 4, and keep your eyes up ahead, because as we come down the hill here we're going to see that something is about to go very, very wrong. People are side by side here coming into the corner, and the Frenchman in 7th is going to go off into the gravel, not only using himself 4 places but getting a penalty to boot and adding insult to injury there. Coming up and over the crest, 9th is now going to get a penalty and also is going to go defensive. No, 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 my friend, it's okay, you keep that position. I am just fine here using you for the slipstream, so you, buddy, can crack on. Fast forwarding slightly here, and as I come across the line to start lap number 6, I'm going to be in the most extreme mode of fuel saving for me, the fuel mix adjustment. I got up to 6, but then keeping my eye on the delta, I felt I was losing a bit too much time, so I fought it back down to 3 and then put it back to 1 and got that radar back on in time to coast and then brake for turn number 1. I'm going to try and continue here to race smarter and not harder than the opposition. As we're going to see here on this lap, the Ukrainian is going to have to serve his penalty. So we're coming through turn 3 here. There's not really too much worry about the tyres in this one. We've got the hard ones on, so it's not going to be an issue. but we're going to come down the hill here, and what we are going to find is going to be an issue for us is that once this guy, oh, he almost loses it there, but once this guy actually serves his penalty, we are going to be away from the slipstream of the two cars in front. This is going to be a crucial time to remain disciplined and not abandon my principles for this one, because as I say, if I start burning through all this fuel like everybody else is, then I'm going to have to either come in or slow right down on the last couple of laps, and that is not going to be the best thing for us to get back on our road to A+. One lap ahead here, we are now just on par, having used the techniques I explained earlier fuel wise with what we need, and as you would have heard, I do have a car behind who actually just hit us up the arse and proved our theory right about not having our radar on. He struck us there, so I thought to myself, okay buddy, you want to come through clearly, so I could use your slipstream so you can crack on. So I'm going to stay really wide here, coming into the biggest braking zone, or one of the biggest braking zones on the circuit, and force him to take the position at turn number 10. And of course though, somebody else saw a gap from about 8/10 back, as of course, because if you don't go for a gap, you are no longer a racing driver. He went for it and made more contact, for which I, if you saw, got an SR down, which is more of an irritant than a disaster, to be honest. It's not going to be too much of a problem, so I'm just going to keep my head here, remain smart as I've tried to throughout this one, and think of the overall race strategy. Coming out of the final corner here to start the penultimate lap, we have done exactly what we wanted to after we let the German through. We saved fuel in his slipstream, and we both walked straight up to the Brit in front, who is having to manage his fuel and having to defend as a result. We had 2.1 laps worth as we crossed the line there. The German's going to make a move into turn number 1, but they're going to be side by side. The Brit is not giving up through turn number 3. Coming up towards turn number 4 now. Keep your eyes up ahead as they're going to go side by side again, and there is going to be big contact. There it is there. I have to take evasive action, and then the Frenchman is getting involved as well, and then another huge bit of contact. The Frenchman goes for another gap because, again, if you don't, you're no longer a race car driver, remember, and punts the Brit off, elevating us to 9th place. Here we go then, the final lap of the race. Now I know I've saved enough fuel here to defend any advance from the gap lunging Frenchman behind. I can tell this by, despite fuel saving myself and him being right in our slipstream, we are pulling away. So because I was smarter earlier in the race and saved fuel, I am now in a position to use what is left. I can use full power and all the revs if I need to, but it doesn't really look like I'm going to need to at this point. We went through turn number 3 there, and as a treat, as some of you may have saw, somebody was just parked at the side of the road. I'm not sure what happened there, but we'll certainly take it, and we are now up to 8th place from where we started in 14th. So guys, a bit of a recap as we're here on the final lap. This is how I used pretty much nothing but smarts, as I didn't clearly have any pace, to get myself in a decent result here. Now I've still got to finish the lap, but things are looking good at the moment. I chose a car I was comfortable with, so I didn't spin off or make any mistakes. I fuel saved from the off, backing out of battles when I needed to, and staying out of the fights to win the war later on. So think about this. Even though these daily race Cs aren't particularly longer races, you still have enough time to take your time and don't need to go for it every single corner, guys. Do like I did, woosah, and let the race come to you. I'm proving it works right here by going up 6 positions from our starting position of 14th to come home as we come out the final corner here in 8th place. 1 place higher than our door number, which was the aim in this one. Mission accomplished. And as that's confirmed here, let's have a look at our driver rating. Another slight increase of 500 points to 37,621. So I weathered the storm of St. Crew last time out, and then here at Catalonia, 2 circuits I'm not too hot on, but we got through them and still made positive progress. And now we have 2 FIAs this week at Suzuka and Brands. So for you guys who know me, you will know that they are 2 of my favourite tracks in the game. So I'm looking forward to some decent progress in those ones. But for now guys, that is the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, please do hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. Thanks again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.